doing today for those who are here already. I don't want to waste too much of your time. The idea is this should be, short and sweet, and ideally just a very relaxed environment. I think we're all sort of in quarantine, a bit stuck and just trying to find things to do. So that's sort of the idea about where this came around. We just thought, we might as well just maybe give back to the community and see if we can get more women involved in the tech space, get more people curious. If you look at the facts, it's really sad to see the little involvement of women in the technology space. So definitely, if you have any questions, if this is something that sparks your interest in any way, or if I can, provide some guidance of anything that we learned today, definitely reach out to me or even to our account in Admios. We've left a link in the bio where you can fill in and leave your information in case you want to get more information about these events that are going to be coming up. But basically, the idea is that we're hosting what we're calling a developer series. So these will be episodes that will be coming on every 2 weeks, where we'll talk a bit about code. This one in particular is Codeless. So we thought this would be a good intro to sort of see what we can do. And before we get into, the more intimidating, crazy shenanigans. But yeah, it should be fun, relaxed. Feel free to chat in the chat space as much as you want. I'll make sure to read all your questions once we're done. And yeah, hopefully this should be of some interest to you or your company or whatever you're up to these days. So I'll share my screen. You should be seeing a presentation at the moment. So what we're going to be talking about today are APIs and what I like to call some codeless hacks. And this is basically ways in which you can use APIs to your flavor without having to write any code or, be even that tech savvy. Now, the question begins. What are APIs? So APIs in the technology space, or even, if you just Google it online, are known as application programming interface. That's what those 3 letters stand for. But I don't know, at least for me, when I first heard these 3 words, I was like, okay, that still means nothing to me. So let's sort of like detangle that a bit. Now, I think the best way to understand it is actually if we turn it around and we say that because APIs are really that interface that has been programmed for applications. So a good example for this is a plug. Let's say that you want to charge your phone. And so what you'll do is that you'll plug in your little electronic square into the wall, and that'll immediately provide electricity from your wall onto your phone so that your phone can use it and do whatever you want with it. So here in this example, the plug itself is the API. So this is the interface that's allowing us to get information or get energy from the wall and use it to our advantage in whichever way we like. Now, an API is basically that interface that developers have programmed so that other applications in the cyberspace can use that information to their advantage and play with it on their applications. And it's crazy because today, that's pretty much how the internet is ran. I mean, I think we've all sort of seen, for example, when we get into web pages, we see Google Maps standing around. And it's not that, that random restaurant in the middle of nowhere has a partnership with Google where Google allowed them to use their maps or, have some sort of secret or even big collaboration between them. What's happening there is that application for that small restaurant is just connecting to Google's API and grabbing their information and using it to their advantage. So here we can see, this is our website in Admios, and we show specifically where our locations are. Now, in order to get that map, sometimes it's as easy as just Googling like Google Maps API, and immediately you can just type like, hey, I want to get this place get me that, and it'll just give you some code that you copy paste, put it on your application, and you're done. And just by doing that, your application is now calling onto Google, getting their information and adding that back to your use. And this is the real power of APIs, because it means that you're able to call on Intel from most major applications and just use it in yours and sort of scale on top of that and build whatever you want to do with that. So another example of a common use for APIs is the login, right? So you can see usually where you can log in with Facebook, log in with Google, log in with whomever. And at that point, your application is just using another application's API to allow them to fetch your username, your password, maybe your image, maybe your birthday, your gender. And it's just using that information that's being stored in Facebook or in Google, and using it to create your profile in your application that you've created. Now, it doesn't only need to be for this. We can see, for example, in Shazam, which is, I don't know if you know it, but it's a very well-known application for getting music samples. If you get if you get a song that you got from the radio and Shazam gives it to you, you can immediately just add it to Spotify like nothing. That's Shazam using Spotify's API to connect. Now, having that said, and sort of taking it back a bit more to what we were talking about before, of really detangling the meaning of these words, I think it's best to start with interface. So usually when we go online and let's say we Google, I mean, I don't know who would Google this and where would this would come out, but it's just, people that I Google sometimes. And you find like, oh, who do I want to hang out with in 2020? And you get a beautiful picture of Bill Gates, where he's from, when he was born, his name, his cute picture. And then you also get Britney because, I did it again. And at that point, for humans, this is how we're used to seeing information, right? We want it cute, we want it squared, we want it in a nice font. But for a computer, this means nothing, right? For a computer, this is just text. This is an image. It doesn't know that this is a name, that this is a place, that this is a year. Computers can't really understand the correlation between all of these items. And so how APIs will really look like is a lot more like this, where you will have sort of the title of the page that you're looking for, and then you're relating information. So you're saying that for this title, these are the people we're talking about, and the first person's name is this, their address is that, their birth year, their picture, la 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 la. Now, if I can show you another example, if we go, for example, onto GitHub, which is where you'll go when you'll start coding with us later during the series. Can everyone see my Firefox at the moment? Just to make sure. Yes, okay, cool. So why doesn't this work? So if I go into my GitHub profile, for example, you can see that I have, a picture, a bio, my username, some repositories I've been working on. And this is what I meant by the human interface, right? We're used to seeing stuff diagrammed and laid out in particular ways. But like I said, computers don't understand this. So for Google's API, it'll look something a bit more like this, where you're having this information stored, and you have the username, you have my avatar, which is just this link that if I click on, I get my picture. You'll have there's some repositories I've done, my bio, et cetera, et cetera. So if another application wanted to do something or create a profile from my GitHub login, this is probably very similar to what they would see about the information that they can get. Now, having that said, yes, this is all cool. We can tap into other applications' information. That's nothing new. I've known that. That's how we've integrated and used the internet. But how could I really use that to my advantage? And please, if so far anything I've said doesn't make sense, please type it in and I'll make sure to answer it by the end. But the idea here is that we're going to see how we can connect applications without even using any code and see how these APIs really work in action. So in order to do that, I'm going to show you, I'm going to demo a workflow from an application called Zapier. I don't know if anyone knows it or has used it before, but it's basically an API connector. So it's saying, grab me information from my MailChimp, and with that information, create an event in my calendar that I need to talk to this person, and then tweet them, and then send that picture through Instagram. And it's just using all these APIs from different applications to build your own workflow and have it do exactly what you want it to do, which is the real power of APIs, right? You're using someone else's work and someone else's information for your benefit and your workflow. So let's see what fun stuff we can do. Now, the first thing I want to show you actually is how many applications exist in Zapier. If I go in here and I explore all apps, I can see that there's like, what, 2,000 applications. You can probably name your favorite one and it'll be here. I know, for example, I'm a big fan of Spotify. SoundCloud, I think, also has one. Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Google, all of Google stuff, you name it. So it really is how applications are talking to one another, and they all really benefit from this, right? Because if you're going into different sites and you're seeing that all of them have Google Maps, it sort of makes you think that you want to also have Google Maps in your application. It puts Google at a higher perspective. Google's benefiting from everyone knowing that they're the top level, person on Maps. So it's sort of this integrated system that the interweb has really become. So we are going to, let me just move these faces around. We are going to build a flow where we're going to grab information from Google Sheets. Let's say for this event, right? So I know who's going to be joining. I've built my Google Sheets. And from my Google Sheets, I want to make sure that I send them an email with exactly the information about the event. And I want that email to be tailored depending on what information I have of the person. So I've built these sheets, and this is just Google Sheets. By the way, if you don't know this little hack, I'll share it with you. If you do sheets.new, you immediately get a new Google Sheets. And it's the same with like docs.new, slides.new, all those shenanigans. So that's kind of a little hack in there. But let's say I am going to make an event, and the event is going to be called Developers Demo, let's say. So I want to get a first name, a last name. I want to get the email of the person, maybe their role, which company they work for. And let's say I want to also get maybe whether they want to keep being involved with us or not. So let's call it involvement with us. And I'll add a first person so that you can sort of see it when we're doing a test. This is my own personal information. Oh. And let's say I say yes, and let's have someone else, which will be my dear lovely sister, which she will have my other email, Juliette Chevalier. And let's say she is a UX designer and for a company called Design Lab. And she says, no, I don't want to hear any more of the crazy talk Juliette says all day at the house. So at this point, we have 2 users, right, in my really cute database. Now, I have this under my account, right, my Gmail account, and I'm working on sheet 1. Now, keep these in mind because these will be important for what Zapier is asking us. So I tap Zapier, and this is the first thing that comes up. At this point, I'm already logged in, but if you are not logged in, it'll just like ask you to log in. There's not that much besides that. But the moment I log in, it says, okay, let's make a Zap. So what do I want to do? I want to make sure that whenever I create one row from my Google Sheets, I send an email. So I'm going to type in Sheets, and I immediately, check this out, I immediately get 2,094 options of all the things I could integrate with Google Sheets. So this is the amount of crazy possibilities that can really keep on going if you know which apps you want to be integrating. So I know that I want to be integrating mine with Gmail. And the moment I type Gmail, I also get some options. So let's see, what's my trigger? I want that whenever I have one new spreadsheet row, so whenever I create one of these, I want to send an email. Awesome. So first of all, it's asked me with which account is my Google Sheet saved in. So we said that it was this email of mine. And then which spreadsheet? It's a spreadsheet called Developer Demo, right? So this one. Now, which worksheet? I only have one, so it'll be sheet 1. And we continue. Now, at this point, it's going to try to test some data. So it's going to go into my Google Sheets and see what it can find. And it did. Now, this is happening because Zapier, by logging in with my account, I've given Zapier access to my Google Sheets so that they can access that information and find it here through Google Sheets API. Great. So now that I know that I can get the data, now I want to make sure that I get Gmail. I want to send an email. From which account? From my same account. And what should my email look like? And this is where it gets really cool, because at this point, I'm tapping onto the variables that have been created for me thanks to Google Sheets API. So that when I type in 2, what I'll see is the information that was stored in my Google Sheets. And you can see that Zapier is even smart enough to understand that the first line, the first row, is the column name. So I can say this should be sent to email, and it should be from me. And what name? And I can just say my name, because otherwise that'd be weird if I say yours. And what's the subject? The subject will be intro to the course, to the developer series. And then I can say, hey, first name, comma, you are such a great, what's your role? UX designer. Thank you for joining us with your company, with Design Lab. And I know that she said no, but we'll get to that later, where we can actually set up different paths for depending on who we're talking to. So we'll say, thank you for joining us. Hope you enjoy the series. And at this point, we haven't set anything up. We can leave these blank. So signature, attachments, we could also add. We could also set some CCs, VCs if you want to get notified every time one of these is sent. But let's just keep it simple for now. And it'll send a test. So I can say test and review. And if I go onto my Gmail account, and I refresh this, I use this email only for spam, so that's why there's all these crazy information here. But I should have something there. Let's see. It says it was sent to Gmail about 20 seconds ago. So I should be receiving it. What's happening? Let me see something. Oh, here it is. Cool. So you see, immediately I have an email on my account that says, hey, Monique, you're such a good designer. Thank you for joining us and enjoy the series. So to grab the information that I had stored in my Google Sheets and basically just replaced it with its true value on my email. Now imagine I had 1,000 accounts. I could just customize all these emails based on the information that they provided us. Now, this is cool, yes, but realistically, I mean, there's tons of information. There's tons of applications that send emails to people. So what's really special there? And the cool thing is that it doesn't stop there. So I can say, and also to the people who said yes to that they wanted to be involved, then maybe let's send them a special coupon so that they can keep participating with us. So at this point, I have different paths I can pick. And I can say that only to the people who said yes, send them one email, and to the people that said no, let's send them some other email. So I can tap and edit for my first path. We can call this yes, people. And here, this is where I set up the rules. So the first rule is where am I getting my information? So because I'm getting my information from my Google Sheets, from the people who say yes, I'm gonna suggest here that involvement with us should contain or exactly match. So let's say exactly match the word yes. And that's it. I can say and add a bunch of more rules, or I can even say or and have different tangents from going on that. But once I've set up these rules, then this new information that I'll be passing, the do this, will only get triggered once these rules have been fulfilled. So I can say that if they say yes, and see that here I can attach it to any of the applications. It doesn't need to be Gmail. It could be any other application that we decide to connect. But let's do Gmail just for simple sake. And I say that I want to send another email from, again, my account, which should be to who? To the person with that specific email that it's getting still from Google Sheets. So it's tabbing onto the information from the API, and then it's coming from me. And the body will be thank you for joining us. And it'll say, thank you for wanting to talk to us, your involvement in. And at this point, this is also very interesting because the more SAPs you create, you'll keep on adding all of the variables that you've added throughout the different SAPs onto, they keep building on forward. So if we had extra information here, we could even keep on adding that onto this email. Now, of course, right now, this wouldn't exactly make so much sense. But for example, if we had a Zap with Twitter, where we would grab their Twitter handle and then send, maybe mention them in a tweet from our account, and then so at that point, I would have their first name, their last name, their email, their tweet handle account, their response, And I said I could keep on building all of these Zaps with more and more information as I move forward. So I'll just say, thank you for your involvement in Design Lab, and you'll keep hearing from us. Now that's cool. We can continue and send that. We can test and review. And if I check on my Gmail, it should ideally get there. Yes, awesome. And now I can say done editing that. Let me just remove the chat. And now I can say, I can set up my other path. So for the people who said no, I can say, no people, you suck. And literally just write that because they didn't want to hang out with us. So a spreadsheet, which column I'll say involvement with us matches exactly no. Done with my with the rules, and then I'll tell them to send them an email and be like, sucker. To that person, So we can keep on doing this. But what I just wanted to show you is that if you know exactly what you want to accomplish, there's a lot that can be automated by taking advantage of APIs. So oftentimes, especially for those of us who have had very administrative jobs, if we can find a way to add on all of these applications and automate that workflow, we can immediately be double the productive, do less work, and actually have time to do other creative stuff and advance in our career. We can keep on innovating within our enterprise or even use that time to learn something new. So it's all about how you're taking advantage of the tools that are already out there with no code and automating it so that it benefits your own workflow. So I'll send this, but I'll leave the floor open now if you wanna if anyone has any questions, or if you've used any other resources in the past that may be useful, just feel free to chat and I'll answer them away. If you've already done so, I'll try to read some questions if you have any, and we'll carry on like that. Let me just finish this. I'll say no people from lovely Jules. Cool. So I see we have some questions. Vanessa asks, is an API a REST API, or is there a difference? What does REST mean? Great question. You see? Yeah, Jules says I suck. So what's the difference between a REST API and just an API? That's a really good question. And it's something that, to be honest, had me very confused when I first started using these. So an API, I would say, sort of like the overall term. A REST API is a type of API. So what happened is that with REST APIs, you could only make one query at a time. So imagine if you're an application and a lot of APIs will charge per query, or often servers will charge per amount of information that you're getting back. And so there's all sorts of business models behind the API world. And so because of that, lots of different types to arrange your APIs have developed. So the difference between an API and a REST API is that API is the overall term, and a REST API is the way so that you can perform basic CRUD operations on the data. So by CRUD, I mean create, read, update, delete. And it enables you to use the requests and the responses to fetch information in a certain way. There's other ways to do it, but REST is just one of them. I don't know if that was that answered your question, or if you have any other follow-ups on that. Aristides says, REST is standard. You can have SOAP APIs, REST APIs, GraphQL, etc. Yeah, and I'm sure we haven't seen the last of those yet. So those are the ones that exist at the moment. Okay, Fernando asks, any limits on the free version of Zapier? Yes. There's a certain number of amount of SAPs you can have on the free tier. And I'm pretty sure that's basically their only limit. I can look up Zapier pricing. I know they have like a crazy enterprise version. Oh, this is not what I wanted. Yeah, here. I think their free one is up to like 10 SAPs or something. Oh yeah, 5 SAPs, and they update every 15 minutes, because that's the thing. If I update my sheets, I want my SAP to be updated immediately. So if you want that extra speed, then you're better off paying, but you see they increase depending on amount of SAPs, and then some extra cool features in there. If you want to have like 10 SAPs follow-ups, or you only want 1 or 2, which conditioner. So that path thing that I showed you, there's like tons of different small outlets that you could have. And so depending on how crazy and funky you want to get with your connectors, that's where the extra kicks feature in. Luis says, if I'm starting to code, do I need to know Zapier? How can I begin? Great question. So actually you don't. This is just I think a very graphical way to show you what you could do with code. And this is why we wanted to sort of do it as this like first intro episode, so you could sort of get a little hype about all the fun stuff that you could do and you could automate with it. But you definitely don't need to know Zapier in order to learn to code. However, if you wanted to know, if you can definitely know Zapier without knowing any code, and you can code without knowing any Zapier. They're not in any way related. And the question as to how to begin would depend on which one you want to do, right? So if you want to maybe automate your flow and you have no interest in learning to code, definitely go for Zapier. No need to code at all. But if you want to maybe do something a little more specific, something more tailored to your workflow, stuff like that, then definitely, I mean, the more code you know, the better. Jose says, when is it cheaper to code your API calls than using Zapier? Yeah, that's good. I would say if you know how to code, the thing is also you got to take into account time, right? So if you know how to code and you have the time to build your own API connector, by all means, go for it. But if you just want something fast, get it out of the way. You know, it's very easy to just tap into Zapier. They have they already have all these connectors for you. You don't need to read Google Sheets documentation. You don't need to link your own keys, set it up, blah blah blah. You know, that can take a few hours, days, however long. So I would say I wouldn't learn to code just to do this if there's already a tool out there that does it for me, basically. But honestly, even knowing to code, sometimes app is just easier and better. Don't reinvent the wheel, I would say. Now Eduardo asks, is there an API that can code for us? So actually, that's sort of what WordPress and Squarespace and all of these content management systems have been trying to do. So, and if we see, if I'm not mistaken, those are also apps that you could integrate with Zapier. Yep, there we go. So what basically Zapier and these content management systems are doing is that they're building the code for you. So by you drag and dropping things around and adding some plugins and storing data, WordPress underneath it is actually coding that web application for you. So that's basically what that's doing. But you see, you also get the bit of that counter argument there is that then you can't personalize it exactly as you want to. You might stumble upon a bug and you don't even know where that is. So it comes with a bit of caveats if you don't exactly know what to look for, or if you want to just build, you know, the next innovative energy saving plant watering hydroponic farm, then you might be better off not going with WordPress and you might want to code it on your own. So it depends really on what you want to do and how deep you want to go into your application. Yes, programmers time can be expensive. And then Fernando asks, how did you get to know Zapier? How did you find out about it? So I actually found out about it in a workshop I attended in Berlin a few years ago, where they were teaching you how to scale your startup without paying much or even needing code. Because I think oftentimes, especially from companies that have been working for so many years, it's really hard to change the process from the inside. And it's really hard to see how investing in something that might automate them can benefit them in the long run. Because it's very common to say like, oh, we've just done it like that forever. Like, why would we change it? And so this was shown to us as a demo of something that can be very powerful, very fast, and then it was very easy to integrate and use. And to be honest, once I first saw it, I was like, damn, the potential is limitless. Because with more than 2,000 apps, it's like, what? The question is really, what do I want to automate that I'm not automating already? You know, why am I wasting time just writing stuff down when I can have someone do it for me? And I think really that's a big part of what APIs come down to, is like, how much stuff can you really just automate and have done? And cool, Jose says that Bubble.io is very good at doing visual programming. Nice. Awesome. Vanessa, what will we learn in the next series? That's a good question. So the idea is as follows. Like we've said before, this should be very relaxed, very chill environment, short and sweet. But I will do my best to try to give you a bit of a holistic glimpse of what the coding world looks like, basically. So we'll start first just with understanding what happens, you know, every time we click on a URL, hit send, it's like, where are we going to and why? And after that, we'll start sort of seeing the more visual part of how applications work. So we'll start by working with some front end. We'll touch upon some HTML, CSS, give a glimpse of what that really means, some syntax. And the idea is that by the end of the first front end chapters, let's say, you'll get to really play with some code and ideally have a page set up. And then once we have that, we'll twitch it to add in some funky animations, maybe some things that change color and size and some stuff when you're hovering over. So we'll play a bit with what we call the DOM. And then after that, we'll go a bit into backend and show you some programming principles that really, you know, translate over on any language, and that ultimately can be useful just to think in a more logical matter in your daily life. So I think development and just software development is a lot of logic, and it's a lot of process and really following through to what you're doing. And that's a skill that is as useful in coding as it can be in picking a restaurant or, you know, picking a mate, choosing a house, like any decision that you're working throughout. So that's the plan. We'll see how much we can do, but ideally it should be fun, sweet, short, and I should give you some insights as to what this world is, and hopefully get you curious into playing with it a bit more when you're in your spare time. Aristides asked, have you heard about Intergromat? I have not. Please share. I'm not sure what that is. We can look it up. The glue of the internet. Cool. Okay, so it'd be similar like Zapier, I guess. Nice. Yeah, awesome. Okay, I'll make sure to check it out. Thanks. Nicole asks, how do you test an API? Have you encountered any challenges with testing an API? Oh man, it's funny that you asked that. That was my torture today. So I'm currently integrating a payment with Square. And of course, if I'm adding Square onto our application, then that means I gotta dive deep into Square's documentation. And if I'm not getting the right information, then my application doesn't work, and vice versa. So it's a lot of switching and playing here. If you're testing in code, we'll see that when we get into the coding part of the series. So stay tuned to that, Nicole. But even in Zapier, what we saw here, they allow you to test it so that you can graphically see the flow that you're organizing before you hit like done, send, start adding stuff, and then your users start getting like information that you don't really want. So definitely a big part of coding, and even I think in life really is just about like testing stuff out, you know, failing fast before you get there too late and the world crumbles. Now, Jose asks, what's the difference between Twilio and Zapier? Cool. So actually you can integrate Twilio with Zapier. Zapier apps. I don't know if I have that tab open. So yeah. So you can integrate Twilio with Zapier. If we look it up. And for those of you who don't know, Twilio is basically an application that allows you to send SMS, voice, or video messages to people. So for example, you know, when you're asking for like a two-factor authentication, like, hey, we got to send you an SMS with a code in order for you to log into Facebook. And so they'll send you an SMS to your phone with a certain number. That's most likely, I mean, not necessarily, but most likely a sort of like Twilio application happening on the back, which is basically saying, hey, send this phone number a code, and then with that code, you can do something else. So the big difference there is that Zapier is more holistic in the sense that you can integrate Twilio with email, with the Google Sheets, with all these other applications on top as part of your ecosystem, whereas Twilio is just exactly for sending these SMS calls or video chats. So that'll be the big difference there. Cool. So if anyone has any questions, definitely keep on chatting. Send them forward. I'll try to answer them as long as time remains. But hopefully you find this useful in any way. This is stuff that I know in terms of companies and just even personal workflow. It's very useful. I, for example, sometimes use Trello for organizing myself, and I have it set up where, like, if I move a card, then that should send me an email and notify that, and la la la. So it can really make your life easier, faster, and have you thinking on stuff that's more creative and fun than really, just retyping stuff over and over. And hopefully it'll get you a bit excited about what we can do with Code moving forward, because really that's what's underneath this and many other applications. Now, can you do a quick check if Soho is there by any chance? Yes, of course. Let's check it out. Actually, I looked that up the other day, and I did find it, but it's not for the Soho human resources that we use at Admios, if that's what you were looking for. But there is Soho, so I think, if we can bug them a bit, maybe they'll fill one up for us or something. Cool. So hopefully you found some use in this. If you have any fun stories of you playing with Zapier, definitely feel free to chat and let me know. That'd be fun to see what you guys geek out with and do with this. And ideally, I'll see you in 2 weeks on a Wednesday. That day we'll give a bit of that intro talk on how the internet works, and we'll also talk about some HTML and how to structure our pages. If this is something that interests you, check us out in Instagram, @miosdevs, and in the link in the bio, you should be able to find the form to fill out, and you'll be receiving more information on that moving forward. So if there are no more questions, it was great talking to all of you, and hopefully you'll have a great evening. Bye.